This is Chronicle on WCVB Channel 5.
To join this cult, you have to know the location.
And they'll say, what's Bungie Lake? They just don't know it exists.
Learn the hand signals.
That means don't come in.
Even get a new set of wheels. Then you might be ready for the lifestyle of the lake.
The water does something different to you. You just feel happier when you're on the water.
The characters.
They call me the muck guy. I gotta check the bottom.
The sports.
It's just normal, run-of-the-mill kids who go to school here in town and do this on the weekend.
The portable party.
This is come on in. And that usually means some free food and something to drink.
Plus, what the heck is that?
People definitely come by to see it.
What's not to like? Next on Chronicle. Good evening. They all say it. There is a lot to like about living on a lake. Tonight, Ted Reinstein finds out exactly what they mean.
Sure, a backyard is all well and good, but what do most folks do with it? Look at it? Worry about weeds? Watch it turn brown? But if there happens to be a lake back there, well, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Ooh, that's a nice rainbow.
It's a lifestyle. You know, there's no question about that.
In 2003, developer Mike O'Brien and his wife Sharon built their dream home on Webster Lake, perhaps best known to the outside world for its mind-boggling, tongue-torturing Nipmuc name.
It's just like it's spelled, CHARGOGGAGOGGAGOGGCHAUGGACHAUBUNAGUNGAMAUGG.
But even the O'Briens will admit their gorgeous home sometimes plays second fiddle to what's out back.
The water does something different to you. You just feel happier when you're on the water.
The lake itself,
Hey! Come on in!
part playground,
Want a cold beer?
part town square.
Hi, girls.
You want to be social here. If you buy a home on the lake, you are social.
But there is a language of the lake. Kenny Mrozik lets us in on the secret hand signals little known to the non-lake world.
If you're going by and somebody's going like this, that means don't come in. So you watch their hand, and as it starts turning, then they're thinking about taking you in. Then when it gets to this, then you know you're in.
This is come on in. And that usually means some free food and something to drink.
Apparently, it's all hands on deck at O'Brien's. Their tiki bar, quiet just a few minutes ago, now packed with friends.
And then your friends see a couple boats, and the O'Briens are doing something. Then you got 4 boats, then it's 6 boats. But we love it. You know, that's why we're here.
It could be a party in 5 minutes.
But not all lakes are created equal. Things are quieter on Bungie Lake in Mansfield. They usually are.
It's funny, you could ask probably 80% of the people in Mansfield if they know about Bungie Lake, and they'll say, what's Bungie Lake? They just don't know it exists. And there's nothing wrong with that. For the people that are here, we like it that way. Go for a boat ride today?
Yeah.
Both Scott Frierksen and his wife, Linda, grew up on this quiet little lake. And when they started their family, they knew they wanted to build their home here. Die-hard lake people.
And it was ingrained in me early, and I can't get rid of it. I'll never not live on a lake.
In fact, Frierksen is so passionate about the lake lifestyle, he ditched his corporate job a few years ago to start his own company, specializing in lakefront real estate.
Of the 100% of the market, we said, let's cut out 99% of it. We're just going to focus on one slice of the pie. But it's a $1.2 billion business just in New England.
Today, Frierksen is known professionally as the Lake Guy. His website, lakefrontliving.com, the first and only one-stop site for lakefront homes in New England.
We've taken that down from, let's say, a 3-hour search down to 15 seconds. You can find any lakefront property.
With 60,000 visitors a month, Frierksen is now rolling out franchises in other states.
I thought it was just going to be a part-time gig. Within 3 months, the website was getting so much attention that I said, I think I'm onto something here.
Back on Webster Lake, things are quieting down at the O'Brien's Tiki Hut, the party migrating to some other dock somewhere. A good time, we think, to put the O'Briens to a little tongue-twisting test. After all, they've had 12 years to find out where they're at.
Lake Chargagagag, Manchagagag, Jamagangamog.
Webster Lake. Sorry. I'm the only one in the family that can't say it. Oh, well.
Then back to Scott, our realtor. He says that at any given time, there are about 300 to 400 homes in Massachusetts that are directly on a lake for sale. He also represents other states. There are about 2,000 listings on his website for Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. There is a lakeside home out there for you somewhere, if you're so inclined. Up next, why buy a boat when a car will do?
Drives like a boat on the road and like a car on the water.
Different lakes have different rules. On some, speedboats and jet skis get the green light. For others, that's a no-no. And then there's the couple who likes to drive right into the water. And Ted has their story in a moment.
Buying a lake house may be a common fantasy, but you have to go in with your eyes wide open and maybe your pants rolled up.
They call me the muck guy. I gotta check the bottom. That's what you're buying.
Rick Stockhouse works with Scott Frierkson's Lakefront Living, the real estate company that deals exclusively with lakefront properties. He says a nice clean lake bottom should be tops on any buyer's list.
Hey, nice and sandy, nice and gravelly.
Stockhouse is showing us a rustic cabin for sale on Hamilton Reservoir in the town of Holland near Sturbridge. Prices on this lake run from $185,000 for this summer cottage on a flat lot to $450,000 for this two-bedroom year-round home with terraced grounds, a boathouse, and grand views of the lake.
I work in Hartford, Connecticut, so when people say, wow, you drive that far every day, you drive up to the Massachusetts-Connecticut border, all that way, I said, you guys don't understand. I'm on vacation as soon as I get out of my car.
Gary Naples, a sports therapist, spent his summers here on Hamilton Reservoir as a boy. When the time came to update the old family cottage, he decided to take the plunge and turn the family's summer home into his only home.
My wife and I were trying to decide, you know what, let's just make this where we want to live. If we're somewhere else, we're always going to want to be here. We're always going to be, when can we get back? What can we do this weekend? When is the next time we're going to get back to the lake?
We have a lot of people that contact us about maybe just buying a summer home on a lake.
Scott Frierkson of LakefrontLiving.com says 9 out of 10 lake houses in the Bay State used to be seasonal. Today, 9 out of 10 are year-round homes.
We try to talk them right away to just find something that either can be converted or you can stay there year-round because you won't want to leave once you get there.
Naples is head over heels about becoming a year-round lake person.
It absolutely is a passion. It's probably more of an addiction. Once it's in your blood, you need it.
A dedicated water skier, Naples has competed all over the country. His enthusiasm for the sport is apparently contagious. Dozens of lake-minded locals have joined him to form the Aqua Riders of Holland.
Just normal, run-of-the-mill kids who go to school here in town and do this on the weekend.
The Aqua Riders are just one of only 2 water skiing teams in the Bay State. They compete and put on shows all over the Northeast. Naples says there's a healthy water skiing underground in the Northeast.
There are pockets of all these smaller groups of individuals who have the passion for this and are doing it on these little lakes everywhere.
There are, of course, different rules for different lakes. Most discourage building humid pyramids, for example. Some lakes allow speedboats and jet skis. Others only non-motorized recreation. But it's likely no one ever thought it necessary to make up any rules about cars.
A lot of times when you go into a lake that there hasn't been one, somebody will call the police and say a car just drove into the lake.
No, this isn't one of those horrible stories that keeps Nancy Grace busy for weeks. It's an amphi car.
Right now, there's probably somewhere around 500 in the country that are water-worthy.
Today, Jerry O'Bara and Laurie Esters are taking their amphicar for a spin in Lake Sebatia in Taunton. They tell us their vehicle has to be registered as a car and a boat.
You have to have an anchor and line, life preservers, paddle, first aid kit. Everything you need for a boat you have to have with you.
First introduced at the 1964 World's Fair, some thought amphiCars would become the wave of the future. But poor sales sunk this odd duck of an auto after only 1 year.
Drives like a boat on the road and like a car in the water. What's the matter with that? You don't have to put it on off the trailer every time you go in the water. You can do 3 or 4 lakes in an afternoon because you don't have to load it and unload it.
Well, they have certainly some limitations, but enthusiasts like to call them the fastest car in the water and the best boat on land. One famous enthusiast, President Lyndon Johnson, who had one on his Texas ranch and apparently used to delight in taking guests screaming on down a road into the lake, all the while shouting, "The brakes are out, the brakes are out," to his terrified passengers. President Johnson with a sense of humor. Up next, a burning question. What's the difference between a pond and a lake?
I get that question all the time.
The surprising answer when Chronicle returns. Lakes draw a lot of attention, and we're not just talking about humans. Ted says these special places need protection, and they're getting it.
I first swam in White Pond in 1950.
Jim Ricker and White Pond share quite a bit of history.
Lived here for 40 years, raised my kids here. This was also the site of our first date.
But Ricker's never seen a summer like 2015. This popular swimming hole in Concord was closed much of the season because of an algae bloom.
It was a real shock to people here because we've always felt it was a very clean pond.
No one knows for sure what's causing the toxic algae. One theory, the pond's being loved to death. There's a private swim beach on one side of the pond, but residents have struggled for years with folks coming in through conservation land to swim off limits in the back cove.
It's not really equipped as a swimming beach, really isn't. There are no trash cans and no lifeguards and no restrooms. So it's been an issue when we get hundreds of people coming here, thousands during the course of the summer.
Longtime residents Chris and Robert Gerzon have launched a Facebook page, Preserve White Pond. They say it's not about keeping people out, it's about keeping the pond healthy.
Well, we really want people to come here and enjoy this area, but in a way that takes care of Mother Earth. And that's why this has been such a wake-up call, because we all thought we were doing pretty well as stewards of the pond.
Overuse has led to erosion and runoff, but the Gerzons also see larger forces at work.
For me, it's brought the whole climate change thing home.
Robert thinks smaller bodies of water like White Pond are ecological canaries in the coal mine, warmer temperatures bringing on unwanted changes. The town of Concord has stepped up patrol of White Pond, reducing off-limit swimming.
And as you hold the water, put your very best intentions in the water.
And neighbors recently held a healing ceremony for their beloved pond.
It's like a family member, has fallen ill, and so naturally you want to do everything you can to bring her back to health.
When we heard her crying out with the algae, crying out for help, we decided we really needed to help her out because she's done so much for our community and for the town as a whole.
White Pond, though, is hardly alone. Many of Massachusetts' 3,000 lakes and ponds are also facing serious challenges.
Our estimates, at least 1/3 of them are probably infested with one invasive species or another.
And sometimes that means hand-to-hand combat with the enemy.
This lake, if you can imagine, everything you're seeing here just a short few years ago was completely topped out, covered in Eurasian water milfoil to the point where you could almost walk on it.
Tom Flannery of the Department of Conservation and Recreation is on Lake Cochituate, which has shoreline in 3 towns, Natick, Wayland, and Framingham. A few years back, this lake was choked with Eurasian milfoil, making it impossible for boats and unappealing to swimmers. After several rounds of herbicide treatments, divers are now hand-pulling what remains.
We went from 150 acres of completely topped out, unusable water to what you see here today, so it's truly a success.
All to the good. But one question before we're kicked off the boat, the technical difference between lakes and ponds.
I get that question all the time. That's probably #1 question. No, there's no difference. Whoever named it back in the day, named it. You could have a 500-acre place called a pond, and you could have a little 10-acre place called Sunset Lake. It's just whoever named it, plain and simple.
Well, there you go. And Lake Cochituate certainly is a success story. The milfoil will never be totally eradicated. Now they say, though, it's just really a management issue. As for White Pond in Concord, they are calling it there the Lost Summer. It is still under a swimming ban. Up next, a concrete curiosity called the Santa Maria.
We always wondered where the Nina and the Pinto were.
Plenty of people use their lakeside homes only in season, shutting them down when the temperatures plunge. But the trend now is towards year-round living, and the prices reflect that, as Ted found out when he went house hunting.
Lake people tend to be less focused on square feet than they are state of mind.
It's a lifestyle. That's what we like to sell. We don't, when we go out, we don't talk about bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage. We talk about everything this lake provides for the lifestyle.
I always know when I have a lakefront person or not because they walk right to the lake opposed to the house.
Annie Lorenz works with Scott Frierkson's Lakefront Living real estate firm. She's brought us to Attitash Lake in Amesbury to show us that rarest of lakefront commodities.
Privacy, which is a very hard thing to come by on lakes.
This gracious four-season, four-bedroom home is part of a 9-member real estate association called the Strathmere Club. At $750,000, this cottage doesn't come cheap, but then again, current owner Sandy Mosher says living here tends to be easy on the travel budget.
You don't have to go on vacation because this is the vacation property.
Privacy gets even pricier the closer one gets to the city.
This is just such a treasure. We're approximately 8 miles from the city of Boston.
It feels like an exclusive lake compound in the North Country, but this elegant retreat is just minutes from downtown, the Upper Mystic Lakes in Winchester.
In Upper Mystic Lakes, there's no motorboats. So what that means is that it's quiet, it's clean, and it's safe.
Ann Spry of Waterfield Sotheby International Realty shows us around this 4-bedroom estate priced at $3.5 million.
The second you drive into this driveway, it's like a retreat without the activity fees.
Some lakefront homeowners are fiercely protective of their privacy. But others aren't the least bit afraid of a little bit of attention.
People definitely come by to see it. My kids and company have a great time standing on the deck and doing their queen wave.
Sure, lots of lake houses have decks, but none like the Santa Maria. Emerging from the forested shores of Lake Menominee up on the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border, this concrete curiosity was built in the 1940s by a priest and used as a chapel.
We never knew the man. I just think he was eccentric and thought it was interesting. We always wondered where the Nina and the Pinto were.
For the last 50 years, the Santa Maria has been owned by Rebecca Keller's family. Outsiders often don't know what to make of it.
I guess if you weren't from this area, you might wonder that it wasn't some kind of souvenir shop or something.
Keller tells us her family is not in the least bit eccentric, made up of physicians and other healthcare professionals, but they've never once considered changing their odd abode.
That's part of the charm of the house. We would never do anything to change it. But no, we would never change it. That would ruin it.
If nothing else, the Santa Maria proves that lakeside living comes in all shapes and sizes. Whatever floats your boat, so to speak.
There's always, a match to be made. One of the best parts about what we do is always a year later that we get a call from buyers. And they say, we've been here for a year now, and now we completely understand what you've been preaching about. Because, they come out every morning with their cup of coffee, and they sit on their dock and they have a drink. Or they go out for an evening cruise and a sunset and maybe dinner on a boat. It's a lifestyle, and you get used to it very quick. There's no turning back.
And our lakeside friends tell us the language of the house is reversed. The front of the house is the part that faces the lake. The back of the house is where you park and put the garbage out and do those other mundane tasks when you're not enjoying the lake. That is Chronicle for tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm Anthony Everett. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow night.